here. Has it only been 2 weeks, really? No shortage of people wondering that on this first weekend in February, an avalanche of daily news stories from President Trump, some of it serious news, some of it not so much. This morning, we explore all that. We're going to begin with New Jersey's senior U.S. Senator, Democrat Bob Menendez, and an interview recorded earlier. I asked him about his reaction so far to the Trump presidency.
Well, you know, we've gone from hope and change to fear and uncertainty. I've literally, Bill, had tens of thousands, and I'm saying that correctly, tens of thousands of calls, emails on a wide range of issues, from education and their concern about the nominee for education, the Department of Education, to their concerns about the Muslim ban, to the concerns of families being ripped apart under the executive orders on immigration, their concerns about a woman's right to choose, and the list goes on. And so there's a great deal of anxiety and concern, and I just feel that the administration has not done anything to reach out and broach the divide in the country in their first 2 weeks or so. Of
course, Trump supporters and some in the administration would say, well, this is just sour grapes by people who didn't vote for Trump and their candidate didn't win, and that's how they're taking it on. What is your biggest concern that you're hearing? Is there one that stands out?
Well, it's about the nature of a country that is not embracing of American values, a country in which you ultimately reject the essence of what the Statue of Liberty stands for, which doesn't make us more secure but makes us less secure. Sitting on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I can tell you that the executive orders on the Muslim ban and immigration in general don't make us more secure as a nation. They create challenges for us globally, for our embassies abroad, for our soldiers abroad. So there is this sense of insecurity, and that insecurity also goes on the domestic side when people see their health care potentially being stripped away without knowing what's the alternative going to be. So this sense of insecurity is great, and I don't think it's by those simply who may not have been supporters of President Trump. I have had a fair number of people who were supporters of President Trump who have expressed concerns, while still supporting him, but have expressed concerns about some of the original actions he's taken.
A lot of people taking to the streets in demonstration, people who we've interviewed who have never demonstrated for anything before, now feeling the need to go and demonstrate. Has that surprised you, the reaction across the country?
Well, I have not seen the level of citizen participation and engagement in my 25 years in the Congress as I have seen right now. I almost am reminded of this era being that similar to that era in the Vietnam War which I was growing up in. And so, you know, I will say that citizen engagement is always something we seek to see, because democracy and citizen participation doesn't end on Election Day.
So far, at least, there have been more cabinet members not confirmed 2 weeks into this Trump administration than every other president in the United States history combined. People can say some of this is Democrats' fault, that they're, you know, sort of delaying all the hearings that go into confirming cabinet secretaries. Are we in for 4 more years of gridlock? Are the Democrats and Republicans like the Hatfields and McCoys here, and they just can't get along? Because it seems like that to many Americans.
Well, first of all, Bill, I'm not reflexive. I'm not a no just for the sake of being no. I have voted for a couple of cabinet members like Secretary Mattis in Defense and Secretary Kelly in Homeland Security. I voted no on a whole host of others. The reality is that some of these nominees are extraordinarily lacking in experience for the very departments that they have been nominated for. Some of them have actually talked about ending or slaying the very departments that they have been nominated to be the secretary of. Others, like in the Secretary of Treasury and the Secretary of Health, came before the Senate Finance Committee, in which I sit on, and clearly at best misled the committee and at worst lied to the committee on critical issues. And so when we sought to have them come back and to have witnesses who have opined differently than them about critical facts, and the Republicans shut it down, that's not the nature of advice and consent. That's not a serious process to make sure that when you put somebody in departments that affect the lives of millions of Americans, you've got the right person.
Well, in that vein about advising consent, let's talk about Neil Gorsuch, who is the president's nominee for the Supreme Court. What's going to happen? What do you predict is going to happen in his confirmation hearings? I know Democrats are still fuming that President Obama's pick, sat for a year with no action, almost 11 months.
Well, it's true that Republicans recklessly allowed the Supreme Court to be vacant for nearly the course of a year, simply under the guise that the opening became available suddenly because of the death of Judge Scalia, and because the opening became last year of a presidency. Nothing in the Constitution says you can't fill a vacancy in the last year of a presidency. They created a new barrier. Having said that, I do think it's important to have a Supreme Court that ultimately is fully functioning, and I will give Judge Gorsuch a full vetting, as I do as to every Supreme Court judge. I've been involved in 3 since I came to the Senate that I've cast votes on. I will give him the full vetting of anyone else nominated, but I obviously want to see someone who is in the mainstream, someone who's going to defend a woman's right to choose, someone who is going to look at today's realities in our nation and compare that to the Constitution as was written by our founders, but understanding that from my perspective the Constitution is a living document. Some of the things that we exist today never could have been envisioned by the framers of the Constitution, like the technological advances and the privacy issues that come with that. So I'm looking forward to a deep dive on his cases, looking forward to meeting with him, listening to his views, and then I'll come to a conclusion.
Let me ask about President Trump and some of his behaviors and his tweets and some of his speeches that he gave, Black History Month and his remarks about Frederick Douglass, his public battle on National Prayer Day, prayer breakfast with Arnold Schwarzenegger. What do you make of all that? And do you respond to any of that? What do your constituents say? Perhaps more importantly, what do your fellow lawmakers say when they see all this activity?
Well, what's interesting, I mean, at the prayer breakfast, I was shocked. This is a moment of national reflection. It is a moment of bringing all different walks of life and all different religious beliefs together. It's normally a moment of national unity. It's not about being braggadocious. It's not about challenging someone who replaced you. It's not about talking about being tough in the world. It certainly wasn't the right venue. So it is so shocking to me. I don't think that President Trump has yet appreciated that words have consequences. They mean things in the world. And it's interesting that he can soft pedal on Putin and Russia, that is now in a new aggression against Ukraine. But at the same time, be harsh with some of our best allies. Mexico, our second largest export market in the world for U.S. goods and services, a major ally in Australia. And so it is amazing to me, and I have a few Republican colleagues who I've worked with on the other side of the aisle in bipartisan basis, particularly in global issues, who are in private are deeply concerned about where the president is headed and the manner in which he is engaging global issues that have real consequence to the national interest and security of the United States. They tell you that in private. At some point, do you think they may go public? I hope so. As I said to them, and I was one of those individuals under President Obama who had a different view on certain foreign policy issues, as I recall. And it's never easy, but I ultimately, had stood up for my views, and that's what I promised the people of New Jersey that I would do when I think it's the right view, and if I think the president is wrong, I will say so. I've done that with 3 presidents. This is the 4th president I've served under in Congress. And I've told some of my friends that if particularly the engagement that we see by President Trump globally continues, that there will be a call for a need for patriots. The senior U.S. Senator from New Jersey, Bob Menendez. Senator. Thank you, Bill. And we thank Senator Bob Menendez. Just ahead, more on the protests over President Trump's immigration.